Hey everybody, it is 586, week number 6. And before we dive into what week 6 is, because it's fairly simple, my goodness, what what a week 5 with being on Twitter, or as we might call it now, X. I don't know. I mean, if I could have picked in the last 15 years the worst possible week to have an assignment focus on Twitter, I think last week would have been it. All kinds of changes now. If you are not a subscriber, um, for like $8 a month, you're limited to how many tweets you can view. And so within a week, um, chats on Twitter, educational chats, which was part of the assignment, went from being um, a thing that at least exists. It definitely is not the heyday that it was maybe 10 years ago, where there were multiple education themed Twitter chats every night. But yeah, that's for sure dwindled in the last year, I would say. Um, but a week ago, it went to almost zero because the way a Twitter chat is supposed to work, the way it used to work, is that you type in the hashtag and then you'd have typically about three moderators. Questions would be ahead of time. They'd say, "Hey, welcome, introduce yourself." So if we're doing, which is now not existing but used to be amazing, California Ed Chat, you'd search hashtag CA Ed Chat, and you say, "Hey, I'm Bill. A little bit about me." Hashtag CA Ed Chat, and everybody would just continuously search and refresh that hashtag, and there'd be about 6 questions over the course of an hour. Question one, this and that, and you'd write answer one. I think that social media is a great way to connect each other. Hashtag CA Ed Chat, and that just wasn't. That's not possible when there's 200 people on a chat and there's 6 questions. You can't read 250 tweets. That's like one question, right? Like that's the warm up. That's the let's hang out. Um, so essentially, with this limit and kind of the paywall that's now in place, um, Twitter chats just kind of don't exist anymore, and that's a shame. I mean, for sure the tone has changed in the last couple of years, um, but yeah, just it's changed. The latest update on apps on if you have a phone, you do have a phone. Like if you have a phone on your phone, if you have Twitter, it is no longer the blue and white bird, which has all kinds of name recognition, like we tweet stuff, and now it's X. It's a black and white X. The funniest thing, though, and I won't go too long on this because it was from last week, you can't name an app on the iOS App Store one character. It has to be at least 2 characters. So X is actually not a legit name for an app. And I don't think you can use special characters, so it can't be like dash X dash or something. I think it has to be like a letter, or X1. I don't know. It boggles my mind. So thank you for hanging in there, and yeah, let's jump into week 6, shall we? In week 6 is mostly just writing a grant. So we're going to look at different parts of digital citizenship, digital literacy. If you've not jumped in and looked at Namely, Namle, give them a follow on all the things. Maybe on Twitter? Question mark? I'm not sure. On Instagram, sometimes they are Namely, sometimes they are Media Literacy Ed. I think that digital citizenship plus media literacy go hand in hand, like peanut butter and chocolate. Uh, the one thing I will encourage you as we look at writing a grant is that it doesn't have to be a massive thing. A lot of how I got technology into my classroom was credit union grants. And so if you look at either your credit union or just nearby credit unions, particularly if they cater towards educators, they often will have an annual grant. They're smaller, they range from $1 to $500, but right when the Apple TV, as the black box, not the old school one that was like the size of a personal pizza, but the one we know now, once that came out, I was actually able to get a TV, an Apple TV, and all the cabling to get an Apple TV in my classroom. Um, and there just wasn't funding for that. There wasn't leadership with any vision for being able to airplay stuff in a classroom. And so that was just, I think it was a 2-page grant. And like half of a page was actually just a diagram of here's how an Apple TV works, here's how I can use it. The Google document, the Google Doc, why did I say document, that walks you through the assignment has some great suggestions. Be sure and read through all of those. Your groups are in the weekly announcement. Also in Canvas, there is groups if you want to use that. It's a great way to have some accountability for your group members. It's one of those where if you're just kind of texting each other or like chatting inside a Google Doc, it's hard to be like, if there's an issue that arises, this person never responded, and then you have to like share the document, look at the history, find the chat. And if you're just doing chat within Google Docs, which is looking for where the easiest way to show that is, the top right corner, like comment history will let you have that. You can do a call within it, start a meeting within a Google Doc. All that stuff is not really preserved. So if you're concerned about how that works, and you dislike group projects because inevitably you do everything, also like you've taught it at schools, you know how that works, but also working in Canvas might be a good way to go for that. Yeah, so take a look at that. You're going to be doing a grant proposal. You're in your discussion board going to talk about the process of writing a grant, your concerns, if you've done one before, how it worked. It's really straightforward, pretty tightly themed in week number 6. There's also some reading and watching around digital citizenship. One thing I read a while ago that we tend to do at our school, although we kind of go back and forth, is talk about digital leadership. So not just are you following the rules, but how do you actually be like an upstander, which tends to resonate with kind of the brain of a middle schooler. So lots of resources around grant writing and funding sources. Yeah, so enjoy that. Hang in there with Twitter or X or whatever that is, because that's been interesting. And yeah, I think that's all we've got going for you this week. It is the beginning of August, if you can believe it. It's something else. All right. Happy week 6, everybody.